is prepared. Got it. All right. I'm gonna share my screen.
Great evening, everyone. I want to thank you for joining this Facebook Live event on this topic of depression. Our sponsor is none other than the Metropolitan Dallas Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority, where over 230 talented college-educated women are serving in their local community, right here in the heart of the Dallas Metroplex on Martin Luther King Boulevard. So what we're asking you to do, if you are joining with us right now, take a moment and share to your page. If you know someone that could benefit from this event, we will start in about 60 seconds, but we want to give you an opportunity to share this good news, and we will begin shortly. Thank you. All right, family. I think we are just about ready to begin. Your committee hosts are MDA's Emergency Response Team, or ERT, where I, Kim Weaver, serve as your committee chair and moderator for tonight. Alongside me is our health committee chairs, co-chairs rather, and that is Dr. Stacy Page and Sor Monique Nathan. Now, to give you a quick outline, we have a great speaker and a subject matter expert to help us with a medical understanding on this disease and its triggers. Then a very brave soul, a courageous soul, will bless us by sharing her personal journey with depression. Now, I tell you, I've heard her story, and all I can tell you is you have got to buckle seat belts. From there, we will turn it over to our Q&A chat monitors to engage your questions. So feel free throughout the program, continue to plug in those questions, and we're going to capture those at the back end of this event. And so go ahead and get those done. Drop those questions, your comments, your thoughts, personal experiences as well, if you feel led to do that. And our chat monitors will make sure to capture those things. Now, as you can see, I am cozy up in my sweater, nice warm sipping tea for this intimate conversation on depression. So I want you to grab a corner of your couch, favorite recliner, and let's learn together. So now I want to introduce our speaker, and that is Dr. Stacy Page, also my soror of MTA. She's a mental health professional, licensed chemical dependency counselor, and certified professional coach, college professor, inspirational speaker, and a published author. Her educational background includes a doctorate degree in clinical psychology from the Texas School of Professional Psychology at Argosy University. She worked with individuals, she's worked with families and groups in various clinical settings, and she provides this mental health and substance abuse treatment to a vast audience. Dr. Page, of course, as I said before, is a member of the dynamic sorority of Metropolitan Dallas Alumni Chapter here in Dallas and serves as co-chair for the Physical and Mental Health Committee. So she is keeping the work alive. She's passionate about her professional growth and is committed to helping this community achieve at its highest level. Her mission is to equip others with knowledge and those tools that will assist them in navigating the pathways of life. So ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to present to some and introduce to others, Dr. Stacy Page. Hey, Dr. Page, I'm gonna have you come off mute, girl, because we know you have a lot to share. And it's all right. We are waiting, anticipating anxiously.
So good evening, everybody. Thank you, Sora Reva, for introducing me. I appreciate that. So tonight I will be presenting on depression. Of course, that is our topic for tonight. And I will say this is actually a subject that is near and dear to my heart because I'm very passionate about mental health. And I know during these times, people are actually going through a lot. So we're seeing our depression rates, our anxiety rates, a lot of the mental health rates for those disorders, they're just skyrocketing, especially since the pandemic started. So now we're seeing these high numbers. We are seeing a lot of people receiving treatment for depression. And so, of course, that is what I want to share with you all tonight. So I'm going to start my presentation. All right, so tonight we're talking about depression. And again, depression is a mental health disorder, and it is very common in our society. And so what I want to share with you tonight is a definition for depression. I want to talk about the types of depression, some signs and symptoms of depression, the causes of depression, treatment for depression. And lastly, I want to talk about some protective factors, which are some things that we can do that will help prevent us, hopefully, from getting depression. So the big question always is, what is depression? And of course, I'm a mental health professional and a therapist. And so I get a lot of clients that will ask me, well, what exactly is depression? And I always like to define it for them and let them know what depression is, just so that they will have a clearer picture of what is going on with this type of mental health disorder. So when it comes to depression, it is a mood disorder. And when it comes to mood disorders, those are disorders that affect our mood. And not only does depression affect our mood, but it also affects our thoughts and it also affects our behaviors. So when we look at depression, it will affect us in 3 different areas. So it's going to affect our thoughts or how we think or what we're thinking about. It's also going to affect our emotions or what we're feeling. It is going to affect your mood. And then lastly, it's going to affect your behavior. And so when we look at the behavior aspect of it, what's going to happen is when it comes to depression, it is going to affect our daily activities. So those normal daily activities that we do, such as waking up, washing your face, brushing your teeth, getting ready for the day, going to work, maybe going to school, maybe getting the kids ready. When it comes to depression, it is going to affect our daily activities and also our personal relationships. So be it your relationships with your family, your friends, your coworkers, it is going to impact all of these areas. When it comes to depression, as far as what it is more than just the general sadness. Now, we are humans, we have emotions, we're born with them. So we can feel happy, sad, we can feel angry, we can feel frustrated. But when it comes to depression, it is more than just the general sadness that we can typically maybe talk ourselves out of or put ourselves in a better mood. When it comes to depression, it is an extreme sadness where it kind of feels like you're in a black hole and it's really hard to get out of. So it's just not the normal sadness that kind of comes and goes, and then we can put ourselves in a better mood. The sadness that comes along with depression, it is going to linger. And typically, any type of sadness that lasts for 2 weeks or longer, we can classify that as depression. So depression is a common mental illness. It does affect a lot of adults. So it affects about 1 in 10 adults. And right now, as far as the rates and statistics for adults, about 16 million people per year are diagnosed with depression. And so that's probably about 17% of our US population. So depression is very common. And then lastly, depression is going to affect more females than it does males. Now, a lot of people ask, well, why does it affect more females than males? Well, typically it's because of our biological makeup. So as women, we have some genetic factors that play a role in there, and I'll talk about those later on. But then also, as far as the psychological aspect and as far as the emotional aspect, typically women, we're more of the emotional people. So we tend to experience our emotions a little bit more deeply than, say, a male would. So that is why we see the depression rates being much higher in women, and more women are diagnosed with depression. And right now, about 2 times more females are more likely to be diagnosed with depression than men. So next, I want to talk about some different types of depression. Typically, when we talk about depression, we actually just talk about depression as far as a major depressive disorder, or just, we call it major depression. We typically just know that one, but there are some other types of disorders that I want to talk about that will affect individuals. So we just don't have major depression. We do have some other ones there. So I want to talk about those for a little bit and give you a general idea of what they are. So of course, major depression, that is major depressive disorder. So that is going to be a depression, again, that is going to last at least 2 weeks. So what we're going to see is those severe symptoms. And when I get to the signs and symptoms of depression, I will talk about those a little bit more in detail. But this is where we're going to see the extreme sadness. We're going to see the hopelessness. We're going to see the helplessness. And generally, it's going to be somebody that just feels like they cannot overcome whatever it is they are facing. For the second one, persistent depressive disorder. So this is a more chronic, long-term depression. This type of depression is going to last at least 2 years or more. And so when it comes to the symptoms for persistent depressive disorder, they may kind of come and go over the years. So the person might be maybe depressed for 2 weeks, and then they're okay maybe for a month. And then they'll have another depressive episode for maybe 2 weeks, and then they're okay for another month. But this type of depression, it is long-term and it's chronic. And so the person just does not overcome it. Basically, what they will do is they will have their good days and they're going to have their bad days, but it's going to last over a number of years versus in a number of weeks. Third category we have, or third type, is going to be perinatal and postpartum depression. So we know with these types of depression, they are going to affect women and they're going to affect pregnant women. So when we're looking at the perinatal type of depression, that is going to be the type of depression that occurs during pregnancy. Now, we do know that during pregnancy, a lot of women go through those hormonal changes. So they'll have the days where they're sad, where they're crying, where they're very emotional. And so sometimes that's normal. But when it's lasting longer than it should, so again, when we hit that 2-week mark, and they're still having those types symptoms, we could say that they are having a depressive episode at that time during their pregnancy. And then for postpartum depression, that is going to be the depression, and the onset is going to be after the delivery of the baby. And right now, about 23% of women actually experience postpartum depression after giving delivery to their baby. So again, they may experience the extreme sadness, they may experience the mood swings, and just not really be feeling like they should after giving birth. And then the last type I want to talk about is seasonal affective disorder. So seasonal affective disorder, we call it SAD for short. And so this is a type of depression that is only seasonal. So it only occurs during a certain time of the year. And the time of the year that we typically see seasonal affective disorder kick in is going to be the winter months. So typically it starts around November and it's going to last through March. And so there are some people that during this time of the year will notice the changes in their mood. They're not as happy as they normally would be. They have the sadness, they have appetite changes, they're lethargic, really just don't want to get up and do much. And what happens is the reason why people have this type of depression is due to the sunlight. So we know that we had daylight savings time a couple of weeks ago. And so now our days are shorter and we have less natural light or less sunlight. And so for seasonal affective disorder, because we have longer days, okay, and it's night longer, and then also during the winter, we tend to have more cloudy days, cold days, gloomy days. That is why we see people having seasonal affective disorder. And so typically this type of depression is only going to occur between the months again of November and typically March. And then around the springtime, so when the sun is out and flowers are blooming and we have more sunlight and sunny days, those people are in a much better mood. All right, so signs and symptoms of depression. So when it comes to depression, there are a number of signs and symptoms. And so what we want to do is, as clinicians, we always look for the signs. We say, okay, what is going on with our clients or what's going on with this individual that would let us know that they may be experiencing depression. And then the symptoms, that is going to be what our clients or a patient would actually report, say, to a doctor or a mental health professional. So some of the signs that I look for when I'm dealing with individuals and treating my clients, one is they're feeling sad or empty. Again, depression is not just a general sadness where you can actually pull yourself out of it. It is an extreme sadness. It is feeling empty. And I've had people describe it to me as in they feel like they have a hole. They feel like they are empty and they are lacking something internally. The second one is feeling hopeless and helpless. There are a number of individuals that they feel hopeless. They do feel like the world is coming to the end. They do feel like they're helpless. They feel like no matter what they try and do, they just cannot put themselves in a better mood. And then we're going to have the appetite or the weight changes. So when it comes to appetite and weight changes, it can go to one of two extremes. Sometimes for appetite, you will have individuals where they do not have an appetite, so they don't eat at all. If they do eat, it's very little. I've had clients to tell me I can only eat maybe, a couple of bites and that's it. Then on the other part of that, we have individuals where maybe they're eating too much. So we have the people that maybe they're craving, the sweets, they're craving the pasta, they're craving all the foods that they want to eat. And so what they're basically trying to do is they're trying to fill that void or hollowness that they are feeling inside. Okay. And then you'll see weight changes. Of course, this is going to be based on the person's appetite. And so you'll see some weight changes with people. You may see someone that will lose a lot of weight, and typically is because they are not eating. So they're not getting enough healthy foods. They're not getting a lot of nutrition. or you can see individuals that they are gaining weight. And of course, these are going to be the people that they are choosing to eat more. So we do see those appetite and those weight changes when it comes to depression. Next, we have sleep changes. Depression does affect your sleep. And so you could either have insomnia, which of course is your ability to not sleep, or you might have difficulty going to sleep and staying asleep. There are a number of people, it may take them longer to fall asleep. Maybe they sleep a couple of hours and then they wake up again. So maybe they're getting about 4 or 5, maybe hours of sleep per night, but not enough like they should. Okay. Then you have people on the other end, they are sleeping too much. So these are the individuals that maybe they're spending the better part of their day asleep. They can wake up, maybe do a couple of things, and then they are asleep again. So when it comes to sleep changes, it could be the insomnia, or it can be the hypersomnia, of course, where that individual is sleeping too much. We'll also see anger or irritability as a symptom of depression. And so a lot of people describe depression as being on fire on the inside. Now, these are going to be individuals that they are experiencing anger, or maybe they're irritable. And there's a lot of people where they say, I'm angry and I'm irritable, but I really don't know why. And so they can go from feeling okay one moment, being in a good mood, to being angered or irritable. Okay. And then loss of interest in daily activities. So when it comes to loss of interest in daily activities, this is where individuals have no passion to do what they would normally do. So typically getting up, going to work, maybe actually doing their hobbies like they would normally do. Maybe they're a person that likes to work out. And so when it comes to depression, typically people will isolate, they will withdraw, and they don't want to engage in their normal daily activities. Then we have loss of energy. With depression, we do see fatigue coming along with that. So for this symptom, people will say that they are tired, or they'll feel like they don't have a lot of energy. And so pretty much they're just kind of lethargic, and they're not wanting to go out, of course, again, and do their normal daily activities. Now, I will say when it comes to some of these symptoms, they do look a little bit different because as African-American women, typically we can still have enough energy, to go to work, take care of the children, take care of the spouse and other responsibilities. But after we do those things, a lot of times what will happen when depression is setting in is we start to retreat. Okay. So we can get up and go to work, but then after work is done, we'll come home and we pretty much shut down. So a lot of times for us, we can still be going. We can still have some energy to get, the most major things done, like going to work and taking care of the kids, cooking, cleaning. But other than that, we don't do anything else. Then you have difficulty with focus and concentration. So when it comes to this symptom of depression, usually because there's so many thoughts going through someone's head that's depressed, they do have difficulty focusing and concentrating. So maybe they're trying to work on a paper, maybe if they're in school, they're going to have problems focusing and paying attention because, of course, usually their thoughts are focused on whatever issue it is they are having at that moment. Then we have aches and pains. Usually the first sign of depression is the person will have some type of physical pain, be it a headache, be it a stomach ache. Sometimes it's digestive issues where maybe they're eating and they say, well, I have, an upset stomach, things like that. And so a lot of times when I talk to clients, the first symptoms they will report is going to be something that's dealing with a physical illness. And that's why depression sometimes is not caught, because individuals will actually report the physical symptoms first, because typically that's what they notice first. So they notice the headaches, they notice the migraines, they're going to notice the stomach aches or anything else that's going on physically with their body. Okay. And then suicidal thoughts and suicide attempts. So with some individuals, they will have suicidal thoughts. So they may have thoughts of hurting themselves, killing themselves. And so everybody doesn't always act on it, but we do have some individuals where they will make a suicide attempt. A lot of time when it's a suicide attempt, that individual is crying out for help. And one way, of course, for them to do it, because they feel like they're at the end of their rope, is to say, okay, well, maybe let me try a suicide attempt. But typically, they're trying to get someone's attention so that they can get some help. And what causes depression? So we have a few things that cause depression. Sometimes it's due to genes or our genetic makeup. There are some people that are predisposed to any type of physical or mental illness. And so they may have some type of gene. And if that gene gets triggered, typically it's going to get triggered by stress, then they may develop depression. We see this in a lot of families. So sometimes depression can actually be generational, where it is passed down from generation to generation, but it's due to their genetic makeup and it's in their DNA, so it gets passed down. Some people may actually get depression, some people may not. It just depends on typically their level of stress, which is the second category there. We do know that we go through major life stressors, and a lot of times if we don't have really good coping skills, what can happen is we get overwhelmed. It's too much stress. And then at that point in time, our minds and our bodies start to shut down. The next one is anxiety. Typically, anxiety is going to be a precursor to depression. There's a number of individuals where they are diagnosed with anxiety and depression, and they're co-occurring disorders. So a lot of people, they may feel anxious, they're worried about something. Maybe there's a lot going on in their life. And so what happens is they don't get the anxiety treated because they feel like they can handle it on their own. And then what happens is they also end up being depressed. So often we will see anxiety and depression occurring together. And then there's trauma. So when it comes to trauma, we know that there are a lot of individuals in society that they experience traumatic events. It might be childhood abuse. It might be domestic violence. It could be maybe they have witnessed some type, of violence. And so a lot of times trauma is going to be one factor that may cause somebody to have depression. And then lastly, substance abuse. So when it comes to substance abuse, we do know that a lot of times when people aren't in the best mood, they feel like, well, let me, drink some alcohol and I will feel better. Okay. Alcohol is actually a depressant. Even though, yes, we know it can make you feel good, it is actually a depressant. So for people that actually abuse alcohol, what they're doing is they're triggering the depression. And the more they drink, it just basically exacerbates it. And then we see them go into a full-blown major depressive episode. So those are just the causes of depression. So how is depression treated? So the first thing that we ask individuals to do is, if they're having any of those signs or symptoms I talked about, is to visit a medical professional, okay? And so that could be a doctor. They can go to a primary care physician, or they can go to a psychiatrist. Those are two professionals that can describe medication, because medication is used to treat depression. Typically, they'll be described an antidepressant that will help them get their chemicals balanced back out in the brain and put them at the levels they should be at. We also encourage them to get psychotherapy or go to therapy and counseling, and they can go to mental health professionals for this. So some of the mental health professionals that treat depression and other disorders are going to be LPCs, which are our licensed professional counselors, licensed clinical social workers, psychologists, and then also LPAs, which are licensed psychological associates. So for the mental health professionals, they are going to provide therapy. They'll also provide them maybe with stress management tools to help them overcome and hopefully resolve whatever issue it is that's causing depression. And then lastly, there are support groups. So when it comes to the support groups, what we do is we will typically encourage the person to also go to a support group. So there's a number of support groups in our community where individuals can go and be part of those groups. And they're, of course, going to be interacting with people that also have depression, so that they can see they are not the only person out there. And it really helps because they have more support than just their therapist or their counselor and their family members. So basically, they're just widening their social support network when it comes to engaging and interacting with one of the groups. And then lastly, what are some protective factors? So as we know, we are humans, and so we must take care of ourselves. And so I just want to go over 5 protective factors that we can actually use that will sometimes help us keep depression at bay. So one is to practice self-care. And so that's caring for yourself spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and physically. And of course, we do need to take care of ourselves so that we can function to the best of our ability. So when it comes, to spirituality, so maybe praying, meditating, reading the Bible. And then, of course, mentally, you want to take care of your mind and make sure you have good mental health. And then emotionally, making sure that you have good coping skills, okay, and coping strategies so that when you do start feeling down, you're able to be optimistic, okay, and hopefully put yourself in a better mood. And then physically, so getting good nutrition and exercising. Two, use your social support network. I know a lot of times we think we can handle stuff on our own, but we do ask people to reach out and use your social support network. So reach out to your family, reach out to your friends, reach out to other sorors or anybody else in your social support network when you need some help, because we know there are some things we just can't handle on our own, and we do need to reach out to somebody else. And then use healthy coping strategies. So we all need healthy coping strategies because we do deal with a lot of stress, even just on a daily level. But sometimes we do have those major stressors where we'll definitely have to pull together all of our coping strategies and resources and use those in order to deal with the stress and get it resolved. And then be optimistic. I know sometimes it's very challenging to be optimistic. And so what I typically tell my clients is to be optimistic and think the best. Even when you're going through something negative, try your best to turn it around and make it into something optimistic. Try to even find some good, even if it's a bad situation. And then lastly, keep a journal. I do tell clients to keep a journal, and I ask them to keep a gratitude journal just so they're focusing on the good things that are happening in their life. So I'm like, sit down every day and write down at least 3 things that you are thankful for that day. It could be that, you woke up, maybe you made it through another day, of work. Maybe your child, passed that test or something like that. But basically keep a gratitude journal because that helps us keep things in perspective and it will help us stay focused on the positive. So these are just a few protective factors that we can actually use that will hopefully build our resilience and protect us against depression. And before closing out tonight, if you are experiencing any type of signs or symptoms, that I talked about for depression, if you've had any type of maybe suicidal thoughts or anything like that, please reach out to the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. Their number is 1-800-273-TALK, which is 8255. Again, that number is 1-800-273-8255. So I would like to thank you all for listening to me tonight. I hope that I've given you some more information on depression, and I just like to thank you all for this opportunity.
Wow. Didn't I tell you guys? You know what, Dr. Stacy Page, that was some amazing information. We have so many nuggets. I have been watching the chat and it is blowing up. So just to have a little engagement with our audience tonight, again, thank you so much for being a part of this intimate conversation. I am still sipping on my tea, but what I'd like for you to do for a little engagement, if a friend of yours have invited you, drop that in the chat. Let them know that you're there. If one of the our speakers tonight asked you to join, if you're part of another sorority, a friendship circle, social circle, or you just pushed it out to someone you feel that could really, really benefit from this event tonight, drop that in the chat. Let them know that you're there and say hello. So now moving forward, I promised you guys, I asked you to buckle your seat belts for this next speaker, and that is Sora Ilanya Taylor. What can I say? She is a realtor with eXp Realtor LLC, one of the fastest growing cloud brokerage firms in the country. She is a native of Pine Bluff, Arkansas. So any of you guys are out there, definitely let her know you're there. Give her a shout out. She is a graduate of the University of Arkansas. So I tell you, Langston University. So go to the HBCUs where she received her BS in accounting. But she did not stop there. She has graduated there, relocated to Dallas, launched her career if age of any type that you remember Bank of America, right? So she was there. She gained a wealth of banking knowledge and finance knowledge there. And then she continued her work as a customer service agent. So soon after this, she expanded her expertise with the Walton Johnson Group investment banking firm. I know I need to get a little bit more knowledge there, but her portfolio goes on and on. And I'm going to continue to share this information in the chat because I want to give her some time to talk. But one of the things I wanted to share with you about her, Alania's goals in life is to have a positive impact on everyone that she touches. So it also continues today. She holds dear to her heart as a volunteer for the Boys and Girls Club of Greater Dallas, Ronald McDonald House of Dallas, and various other nonprofit organizations. She is also a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority, which is a private nonprofit organization whose sole purpose is to provide assistance and support, as we're doing tonight, through established programs in our local communities throughout the world. Alania's mantra is to treat others the way you want to be treated, but never lose yourself in the process. Now, ain't that some good tea? So this beautiful soul, brave soul, is going to share her story and how she is thriving through her depression and anxiety. So as we continue this, begin to start dropping those questions, comments. If you have some for Sarah Page as well, go ahead and drop those questions, because soon after we're done, because I know there are going to be a lot out there, we're going to open up our Q&A session so we can connect with you as well. Sarah Taylor, welcome.
Thank you, Sarah Weaver. Thank you so much. And first, I'd like to thank the Metropolitan Dallas Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated for allowing me to share my journey. Just so that you all know, this is my very first time really sharing this story on a public platform. But I feel like God has been leading me to do this. So tonight, I'm going to start with the story. And so the way it started was I was in a relationship. I was dating a guy, and we've all been there, a guy or a girl. And the relationship was going really well. And we started talking about getting married. We started going to jewelry stores, looking at rings. And the more we looked at rings, the more we started to argue, the more things didn't feel right, the more I felt like I wasn't in it. So after arguing a lot, which is something that I never do, I do not like to argue. So we were arguing. So I broke up with him. I was like, I'm done. This is just too much. I can't do this. So I broke up with him. And of course, you know how they do. They call you, and they call you. And so I finally said, okay, well, if we're going to be together, we're going to have to go to therapy. Well, most men don't like going to therapy. So I thought that that was a sure way that the relationship was over. But he accepted the assignment. So we ended up going to therapy. Needless to say, in the first therapy session, he talked the entire time, and I cried the entire time. I could not get one word in edgewise. Every time I got ready to say something, he cut me off. So after the first session, the therapist told us, go home, and this is what I want you to do. So she gave us our homework assignment. So we left, went home to do our homework assignment. The next week, we went back to therapy. We sat back on the couch, and it started all over again. Again, I couldn't get any words in. I began to cry. And all of a sudden, the therapist says, this is just too much. This is too much. And at that moment, I knew that if she said it was too much, and I was already thinking it was too much, it was too much. So we left that therapy session with another one scheduled. Well, when I got to the parking lot, I decided I had had enough. So I quit. I told him that we could not be together. So moving on, I eventually ended up moving out of my apartment to a new apartment. No, he didn't know where I lived. I changed my phone number and I told everybody at my job, if he called, I'm not here. If he comes up, I'm not here. I don't work here anymore. So after that, I decided the next week that I was going to go back to therapy, but I was going to go back without him. Now, I don't know exactly what made me go back without him, but I felt like it was something that I kind of wanted to do. So I went back to therapy by myself. So during that session, I really got to know who my therapist was, and she really got to know who I was. And one of the things that she told me during my third session was that I think you're suffering from anxiety and depression. And I was like, I'm not depressed, I'm happy. She was like, no, she says, I think you're suffering from anxiety and depression. And I said, well, why would you say that? And so she started reading off some of the things that, would tell you if you were experiencing symptoms of anxiety and depression. And I started to look back and I was like, okay. As I looked back, I thought back on times when I would be driving to work and I would just start crying. I had no idea why I was crying, but I started crying. There would be times that I would be at home and I would be by myself and I would start crying. I've always been a crybaby, so I didn't think that it was anything wrong with it. But come to find out that those were signs of depression. And along with me just crying, when I'm by myself, it was like I felt lonely. And there really wasn't a reason for me to feel lonely because I had a loving family. I had a lot of friends. I was involved in several organizations and I had my friends from the organization. So I was constantly and always surrounded by people that I knew loved and cared about me. So I didn't feel like I was lonely, but I was lonely. So long story short, I continued going to therapy. And then I hooked up with a psychologist. So going to the psychologist, I started taking meds. And the interesting thing about the meds was we would talk about them and then she would tell me what each one was for, if they were for norepinephrine or serotonin and what each one of them did. And so I would try it and then I would go back. No, I don't like the way that made me feel. But try it for a little while longer than I would. But then I come back and I say, well, I feel better here, but I don't like this. And she said, okay, well, we're going to add one. So we'd add one. And then she'd say, well, how do you feel the next visit? And I say, oh, I'm about a 7. And she would say, okay, well, what's causing you to feel like you're at a 7? Well, I still don't want to get out of bed. She says, okay, well, this one, we're going to bump it up. So we bumped it up. So basically what I'm saying is it took time for us to get my medication right. And it wasn't like one visit, I got my meds and I was okay. It was like over the course of several visits. So the thing that I learned from that was don't say you don't want to take the meds, take them and see how they make you feel. And if you don't like how they make you feel, discuss that with your provider, because there are ways to modify the medication that you're taking. And then the other thing that I found out was what my triggers were. I didn't know that certain things that were happening were actually triggers that were causing me to experience the anxiety and the depression. So a couple of the things that I found out were related to my anxiety and my depression was I had trouble concentrating. It was times that I felt like I was going to lose my job because I couldn't remember things, like going from one office to the next. I couldn't remember what my boss had said or what the coworker had said. And I was like, this is not right because this is not me. I'm good. I know what I'm doing. I know my job. And so, at one point I felt like my job was in jeopardy. And that's how I knew that, okay, something's not right with me. The other thing was worry. I didn't think of it as worry. I thought that it was just me trying to be perfect. I didn't ever want to disappoint my family. I didn't want to disappoint my friends. And interestingly enough, I didn't want to disappoint myself because I put a lot of pressure on myself to be great and to be perfect. So that was one of the things that I learned. And then conflict. Conflict is something that I did not deal with well at all. And I do better now, but conflict was something that I didn't deal with well. If I felt like you raised your voice at me past a level 2, I was gonna probably start crying. If somebody said something to me that I didn't like, I wouldn't say anything back to them. I would just kind of like let it roll off my back. But deep inside, it wasn't just rolling off my back. It was actually affecting me from the inside. Something else that I learned was that a lot of times I would be tired, didn't have energy, wouldn't want to get out of bed. Sometimes I would get out of bed, but still didn't have the desire to do a lot of the things that I really like to do and I enjoy doing. Sometimes I didn't feel like I was good enough, and when you say you don't feel like you're good enough, it's kind of hard to describe what that really feels like. But again, you feel like you're constantly letting the people around you down. If someone asked me if I wanted to, let's say if I could pick them up from the airport, if I didn't really want to or have time, I made time. I figured it out. And I found out that I was cramming so much stuff that I really didn't want to do into my life because I didn't want to disappoint someone else. So that was another thing. And insomnia, terrible, just terrible. I still have problems sleeping, but I've figured it out. Meds. They're my best friend when it comes to sleep sometimes. Herbal teas, meds, anything that I can take to help me, I do it. I actually did probably 4 years of talk therapy after the first session that I went to. And I learned so much about myself. I learned how to deal with people. I learned how to say no, which was very hard because I would say, no, I can't do that because I have to go and do A, B, C, D. And my therapist was like, no means no. You don't owe anyone an explanation as to why you don't want to do something. If you don't want to do it, the answer is no. So I've learned how to say no because I don't want to. And then the other thing that I want to talk about a little bit is what I call invisible illnesses, because invisible illnesses are those things that affect you that people don't see on the outside because you look good on the outside and you don't act like there's anything wrong with you and you don't move like there's anything wrong with you. But sadly, invisible illnesses can also cause depression because I suffer from what's called Ankylosing Spondylitis. It's a form of arthritis and it affects your lower spine, your entire spine, but mainly your lower spine. In its worst form, your spine can fuse together. So Ankylosing Spondylitis is a chronic disease. It is not going anywhere. There is no cure for it. You take medication, you exercise, you rest, you do self-care. The other thing about ankylosing spondylitis is on most days, I'm in some type of pain. And you don't see my pain, but I'm in pain. And being in pain all the time can cause you to be depressed. Also, the thing about it is your friends, your coworkers, your peers, they don't understand what you're going through because of your illness. Because they don't see it and you look good, they don't understand that you couldn't sleep and you only got like 2 hours worth of sleep because you were hurting. Or when you get up in the morning, you don't want to move because you're hurting. So I deal with invisible illness. Fibromyalgia, that's an invisible illness. So all of these things kind of go hand in hand. You know, the depression is there, but I know how to treat it. The ankylosing spondylitis is there, but I know how to treat it. The anxiety is there, but I know how to treat it. Then the other thing is that I found out what some of my other triggers are. Basically, anything that causes me stress. So I try not to stress. I try not to let things worry me. With relationships, if the relationship don't feel right, I'm good, I cut it off. If it's with a male, I'm good, I cut it off. Because 9 out of 10 times, it's not me, it's him. And he's trying to make me feel like it's me, not him. So I've learned that. I've learned to tell people no. And I've learned how not to be as hard on myself. So I enjoy having the healthcare practitioner that I have because we formed a great relationship. I've been with my healthcare practitioner for probably 18 years now. And the good thing is when I need to be on medication, I know where she is and I can always go and get a prescription. If I'm taking my medication and I start to feel better and I don't feel like I need it, then we talk about it, we discuss it, and then we go from there. So there have been times when I've been on medication for a year and a half, 2. And there's been times when I've not been on medication for 3, 4, 5, years. But I think the best part about that is that I've learned how to recognize when I need help. And I'm not afraid to ask for help. And I'm not afraid to let other people know that I've gone to get help. And I think that has really helped me to be able to deal with the fact that I have chronic anxiety and depression, and that I now know how to actually deal with it and how not to let the anxiety take over me, the depression take over me, and I have control over my life. So if it's one thing that I can say to anybody out there is that if you struggle from anxiety, depression, invisible illnesses, just find a provider that you trust, that you believe in. Go see them, talk to them. And if you don't like the first therapist that you go to or the first psychologist that you go to, find another one because they are not one size fits all. And then the other thing to remember, or that I try to remember, is that even though I have anxiety, I have depression, and my invisible illness, it's not terminal. And by it not being terminal, I'm living. And I'm living the best life that I can live. And then lastly, because they always want to call us crazy, Don't let anybody call you crazy because you're looking for help. It's them that's crazy. Thank you for allowing me to share my story with you.
Ooh. All right, Taylor, I am speechless. I am moved. If you have been watching any of this information through the chats, you will know we have you on a platform of pillows. What your bravery. I see the hearts flying. They are coming through like crazy. And
Well,
so I
thank
know
you.
that we wanted to provide a little time for some questions. But right now, before we open it up for a Q&A, so we only may have a time for a couple of questions. So I'm gonna call an audible really quick. If you are watching and you feel like you could use a part 2 of this event, and you want to hear a little bit more from Sora Taylor, if you want to hear a little bit more from Dr. Page, put a thumbs up, put a heart as your emoji, and we will see what that looks like. But I'm going to close out. I'm going to have the Q&A team to go ahead and open up your videos. We'll get a couple questions, but then I'll have something extra for you when we close. So hang tight.
All right. Thank you all for joining this evening. Such a phenomenal presentation. Oh my gosh. Dr. Page, wonderful information. Sora Taylor, beautiful story. And just truly thank you for doing that. So really quickly, because I know time is of the essence. So we definitely had lots of great comments, but a few questions. So for Sora Page, can you expand on seasonal depression versus seasonal grief? Is there a difference, or can they be one and the same?
So for seasonal depression and seasonal grief, they are two different things, but they can coexist together. Typically, when we talk about seasonal grief, those are individuals where they lost a loved one maybe in the fall or winter months. And so if that happens, when of course the next fall and winter comes around, so the first year that they no longer have their loved one, they'll start experiencing, of course, the grief symptoms. And grief symptoms do look a lot like depression. So the extreme sadness, just feeling really low because of course they're missing their loved one. And so that's why they say it's seasonal grief if it happens during fall or winter. But those two do coexist together. And so a lot of times, again, we'll see people, they will have grief, but they're also experiencing seasonal affective disorder at the same time.
Thank you. So definitely they can be one and the same. So another question, and several people actually brought this up, they were wanting to know about strategies to help others get professional help. A couple of people, they spoke about grandsons, children, different things like that they want to get help. So what are some strategies to get that?
So some strategies to help individuals get help is one, you always want to make sure that you have a private conversation with that individual. Okay. Now we know there is a so-called intervention, and of course they bring the person in and you got 4 or 5 family members sitting there. That is what we do not want. We want you to pull that individual aside, whoever it is, be it friend, family member, co-worker, and maybe just tell them that maybe you've noticed something is maybe not quite right, with their mood or maybe their behavior. And then just kind of assess it from there to really see where they are. After talk to them, ask them some questions, just ask them if they'd be willing to get some help. And a lot of times people will actually say yes, that they are willing to get the help. They've just been waiting for somebody to reach out to them. And if they do say yes, then help that person and show them support. So maybe offer to do some research as far as maybe, doctors they can go see if maybe they need medication, reach out to maybe mental health professionals, but basically be there by their side to help them walk through that whole process. Even if you need to take them to the appointment and go with them. I've actually done that myself before for a family member. They were willing to get the help, but they just didn't want to go by themselves. So I found a great therapist. I went there with my family family member sat with her while she did her paperwork, when she did her intake. And of course, that really helped because she wasn't alone. And so sometimes you got to take those extra steps to just walk with them and make those appointments if we have to, and take them to those appointments. And then just let them know that you are going to be there with them, and you're just not going to drop them and leave them, but you're going to still show your support.
Whew, wow, we are at the top of the hour. I mean, that is so much information. But as I share with you guys, I want to just do one quick closer. But if you are interested, please let us know in the chat if you want to hear from these beautiful ladies. So as we wrap up today, I'd like to ask the audience to do a couple things. Encouragement to our speakers, share your thoughts, your good vibes. We love feedback, good, bad, or indifferent. We want to be better. If you would like a more private conversation with either of these beautiful souls, we ask that you send an email to mdadeltaready@gmail.com. If you can drop that in the chat, mdadeltaready@gmail.com, and we will make sure that we connect you with these beautiful souls. So while you are taking care of yourselves, I want to personally thank the communications and technology team for developing this platform for us, the graphic designers, the Q&A facilitators. Oh my gosh. And last but not least, our amazing speakers tonight. Dr. Page, you just make me smile. Sorry, Taylor, you make me cry, but those are good tears, and I am so grateful for you tonight. And although this session has drawn to a close, let the intimate conversations continue. Check on your strong friends too. So this will conclude our session. Stay safe, be well, and good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.